and probe them for meaningful information about looking for jobs and using the Anthro degree. So let me introduce our people. So Ted Hoefer, and I'm not going to say anything about you, you're going to do it yourself.
All right.
Karen McWilliams, and then of course Chase Weldon. Thank you for coming. So I don't know if you can decide which way, who wants to go first.
Go ahead. No, that's okay. You go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm still catching my breath running.
So my name is Chase Weldon. I graduated from the Anthropology Department in 2006. And so after that, I moved out to California with my wife and was a ski bum for a while in Lake Tahoe, using my anthropology degree wherever I could. And then I decided that, you know what, enough of that, and moved back to Fort Collins and had a couple of jobs in between. In California, I did a couple of internships doing stormwater quality management and recycling, because the environment was always kind of a big part of me, and anthropology and the way humans interact with the environment was always super interesting to me. And I sold investments for a while when the economy crashed, and recycling aluminum and cardboard was worth zero. In California, they were issuing IOUs, so it was a good time to kind of, all right, figure out something else to do, because I felt as an anthropology major, and when you graduate, like, you have to think about, okay, what can I do with this? How can I market this degree? And for me, I had always thought of cultural anthropology, so what I studied was that anthropology deals with human decision making. So every job that I've had, every job that you will have, human decision making is pretty important. And so anthropology deals with large spans of time. And no one thinks, like, in my opinion, like we do as anthropology majors in the span of time, right? I mean, no one thinks like that. And to really have that perspective, I thought it was the best major on campus, and I loved every second of it. So you can really do a lot with this degree, but I think the key is how can you market your skill and your skill set and what you know as an anthropology major. And I guess that's just right now, I am the career liaison to the College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Sciences and the Career Center. So human decision making, I got my master's in counseling and career development last year. I graduated in 2013. So that's what I'm doing now. Come see me.
So I'm Karen McWilliams, and I graduated here in 1982. And I actually grew up overseas, so my whole interest was cultural anthropology and just that whole, variety of people in the world and all the different experiences and so on. Came to CSU and got much more into archaeology. So I actually specialized in archaeology in my undergraduate work and enjoyed it thoroughly, loved getting out in the trenches, literally, and actually met my husband that way. He was actually in the pit next to mine on film school, and so that's how we actually met. And after my degree in anthropology, I went right into a master's in history here at CSU. And because I was here at CSU, got my undergrad here in a very similar program and everything else, I didn't even have to take the GRE or do any of those things. So, something you might ask about, those of you that want to just continue on. So switched over into history because I thought that history might give me a broader area of focus, more jobs, that sort of thing. Only to discover later that actually there's probably more jobs in archaeology and anthropology than there are in history. But both of them give you really good foundations for going into any field you want. I actually came out of CSU and started working at the Fort Collins Library as their local history coordinator. So I was doing all the archives, all the photo archives, so managing photographic materials and doing things like that, and research, lots of fun research and so on. and I did that for about 7 years, and worked for the Park Service a little bit doing projects at Bensold Fort and up in Rocky Mountain National Park and so on. And then got the opportunity to work for the city as the historic preservation planner. So moved into that, and I've been there ever since. Shocking to me too, but I figured it'd be another, few years and then move on to something else. But it's been good, and I've enjoyed it. And I think the key thing again is that it provides your degree in anthropology really teaches you about different communities, teaches you that our way of doing things here isn't the only way, and it's not necessarily the right way, it's just a way. And that is so valuable when you go out and you're working with people, whether it's developers or citizens or whoever it happens to be in your life, to realize that there's many perspectives and that you should have the breadth to be able to look at all the viewpoints and then come in and not bring in value judgments and so on. It has to be certain. So it's been, I never regretted it. I think it's been a wonderful degree, and I highly recommend it.
Hello, my name is Ted Hoefer. I run the Western United States offices for a firm called Cultural Resource Analysts, and we do archaeology, historic preservation. We have an office in Longmont, Colorado, and one in Salt Lake and Sheridan, Wyoming, that I oversee. And I've been an archaeologist ever since I left CSU. But thinking back on it, it was kind of weird how I got here. When I was in high school, I was a major journalism person and a photographer and all that. And I came to CSU for the technical journalism program. And I don't know how many of you have done this, but I'm laying in my bed one night looking at the ceiling, telling my roommate and going, I can't do this anymore. Journalism made me crazy. It still makes me crazy. I went my first year, I'm from Southern Colorado, and I went a year at Adams State College, and I took a class from Herbert Dick, who was a Southwestern archaeologist. And I always liked doing that stuff, and I called up my parents and said, I'm transferring my major. I was taking a class here. And I had really supportive parents, but they kind of stopped and going, you're doing what? My dad and grandfather were journalism and history majors, but they were very supportive. I find it funny these days, I have a job and there's a lot of journalists that I actually went to school with that don't at the moment. So fortunes change, you never know what's going to happen. I came here and I got a BA in '79, and then I got to where I needed to be in cultural resource management and doing archaeology, but I needed the master's, and I decided to get it here, and I'm really glad I did. Cal Jennings was my thesis advisor, and I had Dr. Elizabeth Morris, who recently passed away, and they were wonderful, and I've kept in touch with a lot of my instructors, and they've always been a lot of help. And I liked it. But anthropology is very wide. What Jason and Karen said are very, very true. You can use it a lot. Lately, I've done no archaeology. I'm talking to a lot of descendant communities that are now being impacted by oil and gas projects and highways. And it's a huge thing now. We're supposed to do these things called ethnographies, which is not what they are. They're little histories of tribes and groups. But you could talk to anybody, and you can do anything with this degree as long as you keep wide open, because you've learned how to interact and study and look at different cultures and see what's going on and how things can happen. And I do use it all the time in a variety of things. I've gotten into a sideline of doing some I guess you would call it low-level mediation for environmental disputes. It's incredibly important to have a really good knowledge of the groups you're working with and knows who they are and where they come from. And the anthro degree gives you the tools to be able to learn those things. And looking back, and everybody's got valid viewpoints on things, and everybody's got viewpoints that you don't know where they came from or how they got there. But whether you agree or disagree with them, you have to deal with them on some level. And I'm really glad I've always stayed in archaeology and done what I've done. it's some people, I run into people and they go, oh, you can't do anything there, and I'm there, you're so wrong. I have a stepdaughter right now who just, fortunately, she got a scholarship because it's expensive. She's in the PhD program at Notre Dame in sociology. And their sociology and anthro department, there's a lot more jobs in sociology and anthropology than anybody ever thought before, because a lot of international businesses, you know, it's a global economy. People are doing commerce, development projects all over the world. And if you know some things about other cultures and other people, or at least how to find out about other cultures and other people, you always have a shot of doing something interesting. And I think that's the next thing you got to remember. Go get a job that's interesting to you, not something that just makes money. Or you're going to get into midlife and go, what have I been doing? And it's really important to be happy in your job if you can. It's a struggle a lot of the time, but if you're doing something you like, that makes it a lot easier. About 15 years ago, I worked for a company, and I had to go get a medical exam because on a lot of federal facilities, they have, there's a lot of things there that will hurt you and make you sick, so you have to do a baseline evaluation. And I got done with the doctor, he did the exam, and then he kind of looked at me and said, so, how do you like your job? And he had like these 4 questions and made me rate. And so I did it. And he goes, congratulations, you're in the top 20%. He does that to every single person that came through there. He had a database of over 2,000 people. And only about 20% of the people he saw liked their job. And he said, you know what? The 20% of people that like their job are also the 20% that are the healthiest. You know, and the reason I brought that up, this last year has been a little difficult. I've gotten to the level of administration where I'm far away from what I've been doing, and it's been a little tough. And this recent economic rough patch, it's just been kind of hard, and I haven't got to do the archaeology or even much anthropology. And the people that work for me are going, you're sure getting cranky lately. And then my wife's going, you're sure getting cranky lately. And I go, well, I don't like my job so much right now. And I thought about it, and I pulled back, and I looked around, and I decided I didn't like my job because I had not been doing any archaeology or anthropology. So much to the, what do I want to say? I tell all my project managers they have to give me hours now because I will go to the field, and I will write part of the reports. I just got myself back into it just enough that the other stuff's okay now. So, and I guess I said that just to remember that no matter what you do, you're going to run into a rough patch. But if you can steer it back to what you like and what really kind of floats your boat, you'll do well. That's what I say.
So we should open it up for questions. You guys should query these guys.
You mentioned internships that you have done. Have either of you done internships as well? Do you consider that a positive way to go, or?
Internships, I would say, if you can get them, are critical. They really make a difference in giving you job experience, giving you credibility, honing your skills, because your first job you're usually not always the best at, and it's really good to have that experience before you find the one you really like. So, you know, that's valuable, but also making the connections and just getting the experience. So a lot of folks will find, in fact, the person we just recently hired as another historic preservation planner started for me as an intern, worked for me for a few years, well, actually on and off for probably about 2 semesters, 2.5 semesters, while he was going to CSU. Then he went out in the field, graduated, went out, worked for the Forest Service for a while, did some other things, and then came back, and with the economy, things were, you know, there weren't too many positions at that moment with the Forest Service. So he came back and just started volunteering with me again, which quickly translated into a paid, hourly paid position, and then we hired him full-time as soon as we could. So he's now permanent full-time. So, you know, definitely internships.
I have not done an internship before. I've had a couple interns, I've supervised a couple, and the last one I had, a young woman from CU came by and said, you know, I really want to do archaeology, but for a variety of reasons, one monetary, a couple of family reasons, hadn't been able to get the field schools or something like that. Said, can I intern for a summer for free? She just wanted to do it, and we designed it for her. And she's not working in the field anymore, but she worked in it for quite a while. Then she got really into the GIS, and she's doing more of that now. But some cases, that's really, really smart to do. It depends on who you are and what's going on, and you know, there's paid versus unpaid, but they can be really valuable. And you just check out all the ins and outs of them and see what they're going to do, and try not to get it for somebody that just wants free labor. Those usually don't work. I don't think internships work, and it's a two-way thing. You're getting a person's labor, but you're teaching them, and hopefully they'll stay on with you, but not necessarily. But both sides got to get something out of it.
Definitely can't agree with that more. The internship, especially a working career and like students getting an internship right now, seems like that is really a really good way to go, because it's kind of a trial period with, you know, budget shrinking, the economy, like bringing you on to kind of try you out is, not to mention the contacts you can make. And a lot of students, like you said, send an email out, have you ever thought about an internship? And then don't speak about money, you can talk about that when you get in front of someone's face. But the internship, I mean, it's big right now.
To follow up, Chase, you know, we often get asked by the students about internships, and the faculty have really spotty knowledge about where they exist and how to plug kids in. So in the world you're dealing with, do you have a set of internships that you just know are out there that you can plug people in?
Yeah.
Or do you encourage students to sort of, as you've just mentioned, to do it on their own?
Yeah. I think both ways.
Uh-huh.
There are a lot of companies right now that are seeing the value of the internship, so they're creating them. A lot of like business colleges, they have a relationship, an ongoing relationship with CSU, where they depend on CSU for that pipeline of interns coming out. And they work most of the time, sometimes they don't work. Either way, you get to either mark that off the list or you get a job. But find some company that supports your values and what you want to do, craft a nice little email, and have you ever thought about this? You know, and you'd be surprised at the response you'll get. But putting yourself out there like that, not a lot of students are doing that. So it can be beneficial, I think.
And that's also one of the things that we'll talk about in the next capstone meeting, is how to develop some of those advocates and your networks, and tapping into those resources, people that you might not even have thought about. So,
just one more add-on to that. Find someone out in the community that is doing something that you want to do, and say, hey, will you have coffee with me? Like, that is one way to say, well, you know, you were in the position that I was in at one time.
yeah.
You know, well, how did you approach that as a senior graduating in this degree? How did you do that? You know, it's a good conversation. At the very least, you can get a contact that people want to help you. Someone helped them at some point in their life, and they want to reciprocate that. You just have to ask.
Did any of you guys think about doing professional level anthropology, like going on for a PhD and staying in academia? Did that ever cross your minds?
I definitely did. I loved anthropology, but I think for me, it was a timing thing. When I moved, like I said, I moved out to Lake Tahoe, and I had a couple of different jobs. And when I moved back to Fort Collins, I was married at that point. I took my wife from Fort Collins, and we had a good time. And so it didn't really match up with my time frame. I eventually went and got a graduate degree, more of a professional one. It crossed my mind a lot, but I don't know. It was a timing thing for me, really.
Same thing for me. By the time I had graduated and so forth, I was married and we were starting a family, and it's just so maybe the takeaway from this is don't get married or start getting married. But no, I would love to have gone on and gotten that advanced degree and gone into something more professional, where you're teaching or you're something like that. That would have been great.
I did think about doing the PhD. I contacted a number of schools and did a number of things, but in what we call cultural resource management, quite frankly, the master's degree is the best one to have. We actually, I don't know what it is now. Your professors would be able to tell me this more. It seems like there's only a limited set of teaching positions out there, and a lot of people that go on to PhD that then come to do CRM end up not liking it. It's not quite as much research and as directed. So I think if you really want to be a teacher and really want to do research, both. I know the higher education environment now, like a lot of environments, are pretty tough. But if you really want to do research and you like teaching, I think you should definitely consider a PhD. If you want to just do kind of what I do, an MA is fine. And an MA is really what you need. You don't want to stay at a BA. You want to go and get the MA too. It opens all kinds of doors all over the place. So mostly the door to make more money so you can make a decent living at it, which I do in a lot of my companies. So.
Ted, I think I don't want to take questions away from you, but I think you touched on this a little bit. Anthropology is such a broad degree and there is so much depth to it, and you spoke a little bit to that, but I think a lot of employers potentially hear that, and unless you're going specifically into archaeology or specifically into museum curation or something that is very recognizable, a lot of employers might have a hard time kind of conceptualizing what the skills are. Can you all speak to how students might be able to kind of help quantify the skills that they're coming out of school with?
For a job like I've got?
Well, or just
generally,
yeah.
Chase may be able to really speak to this better than I do, but every job requires communication. I don't care where you go. You need to be able to read, write, and speak well. And that translates into any job out there. Unless you're just doing, building something, even that does sometimes. But the best thing about anthropology is kind of the broad base and learning about different cultures and how to research them, where to find information on them, how to go about interacting with different cultures. I think is really important, and that just talks to a lot of people. And there's a lot of people I know in the business community say anthropology and their eyes kind of get weird and they don't know what it really is. A lot of people in the business community are quite brilliant, but they never think of that. It's not in their view shed. Some don't have any idea what it is until you tell them, and then their eyes start getting big. And they say, well, I can't sell my product in this community over here. Well, maybe you can help them because it's a different community. It has different wants and needs. Or, a lot of nonprofits and type things like that. I mean, I actually had a guy, before I was married, I had a girlfriend who ended up working at Hewlett Packard now. She's now a fairly high executive at Dell. And she had a computer degree from CSU. And I went to a party with her, and I was talking to one of the big shots of the Fort Collins plant out here, and all the real nerdy computer people that write their programming are over here not mixing because they're so strange. And I got into, excuse me, anybody that does computers, but these are the high-level guys that they actually got assistants to go with them to do their insurance and make sure they paid their bills and turned off their stove and things like this. But I got into a conversation and I actually got offered a job, but I didn't want it. Computer, not ever something I've really wanted to do. They hired a lot of sociology, English. They hired, Hewlett Packard still hires a lot of liberal arts majors. And why do you suppose that is?
Because they can communicate.
There you go. And they can communicate. And on those big computer companies, yeah, there's the guys and gals doing the programming, and they may all be over in India now, but there's a whole bunch of those people. They're selling, they're doing business development, they're thinking up new things and ways to do things. And I still think, and it gets derided, and now my wife, who's ex-teacher, social studies teacher, this new STEM program, science, technology, engineering, and math, she's going nuts over it because liberal arts students still have the broadest base of doing anything. thing. But it gets derided by people who don't know what it is until they find out. So if somebody's giving you a hard time about an anthro degree, just start talking to them, because they probably don't know exactly what it is and how it can help. Okay. Did that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, liberal arts does a lot of stuff that, we get a lot of specialization these days. But I have a lot of people come to me to get jobs that are really specialized, and, I don't have any jobs where I can just put them in a room and they can do what they specialize. I need them to be able to go out and talk to people. And I am actually quite shocked at the number of people who come that really have a hard time communicating on any level that have BA degrees. So,
And it's not just the communication, it's flexibility too, and being a generalist, having a lot of skill sets where you can research and do just a wide variety of things. When you go to that Hewlett-Packard or wherever it happens to be, it's so much easier to take somebody with a broad base of skills and train them in a specific task or, whatever they need to know to do that job. It's really hard to take one of these, pick on the computer folks, computer nerd who really know, but can't do the other things, doesn't get the research, doesn't get the communications, doesn't get how to be flexible and adaptable. And so many hiring groups, when they are out there looking to hire people, they would much rather have a generalist who can bring in a variety of skill sets. So that's what I'd hit on if you're out there. You're very flexible, you're very adaptable, you can easily blend in with whatever minimal amount of training and you'll be right there, as opposed to.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think the key is being able to articulate that in an interview. I use the word anthropology a couple times in my interview for the university, and how I lean on that education, probably in many contexts more so than my graduate degree, because this is such a diverse environment. People come with their own worldview and their own lenses, and anthropology teaches you how to really understand that and come to the plate when I'm talking with students, whether it's counseling or career development, and if you can bring that unbiased really point of view, it will build relationships. So it's a skill that you have. Make sure you communicate that across the table when you're in an interview.
So I have a question. What would you say is the most effective way in searching for a job and coming out of school? Because I actually myself used to work at the Career Center. I'm double majoring in anthropology and philosophy, which I'm told is a good mix because I think very differently than most everybody else. Yet the resources that are available for students are not set up in a way that students with our degrees can easily find those positions, that our degrees are applicable, but the employers don't know that, because especially in my work at the Career Center and seeing what sort of jobs and internships come up, the employers don't know that anthropology or philosophy is beneficial for that, and it's kind of hard to know where to even start or how to go about looking for a position in which that degree can be useful to even get an interview and not be cast aside as, well, this isn't business management. So.
Well, there's a lot of ways to look for jobs. The internet is one of them. That's the easiest way to look for jobs too. So guess what? That's how everybody's looking for a job. So what you're going to have to learn how to do, which I had to learn the hard way, because after graduation I moved to a tourist town that was shut down, right, out of season. And so I was like, this is not working. No one is answering my emails. no one is at their desk right now. So it's putting yourself out there, asking people for coffee, doing informational interviews. That is the way that not everyone is doing, because it's tough to put yourself out there. We're afraid of rejection. Well, when you graduate, that's one of the other things I learned. Get used to rejection and no. It gets easier. It's like working at a call center, right? It gets easier after you receive that information. So use the internet to get a job. Be able to articulate your skill set to the employer when you get in front of someone. Join your professional organizations. That is a great place that, you know, people with this background, they're working, how did they do it? And that's how you really want to approach this process, is asking people, okay, what steps did you take? Even a potential employer, don't ask for the job. Ask them, it's a more meaningful conversation when you say, okay, you were in my position at one point. What process did you use to find a job? And it's something as a senior, because it's so competitive out there right now, especially in Fort Collins if you want to stay here, is that you have to to set aside some time once a week to send out an email. Take the lead, ask someone to go out for coffee. You never know where it's going to lead. So through your internet searches, through getting more face-to-face, joining these professional organizations, and just putting yourself out there, you know, at some point, you're going to get an interview, right?
Chase, would you say, like, when you write a cover letter for a job and you're thinking, oh, this is a job in some business realm and they're not going to understand that I would be a good fit for this, you just attack it in the one-page cover letter, right? Like,
Yeah.
would you think
really.
that's a good strategy?
Yeah, I
Just
think
say it
that's
up
a great
front.
strategy.
You may not think of me because but this is what I can bring to the
Yeah.
job.
Well, I would even say you may not think of me, because they might start saying, well, I don't think of you. Just go right into it with my education combined with my experience. This is what I can do, and you want to project out into the future. The key is in that job description, right? Here's what they're looking for. Here's my skill set. And you combine those concepts and you attach, you know, every organization typically, if it's an anthro department or an organization, they have their mission statement up there and their values, which is on their staff page. You use that information against them, right? And of course, you don't want to apply for the company if they don't fit your values. That's
Right.
never going to work out. But that is one way to, you know, speak the language that you've learned through your experience and your academics to getting an interview. And I think these days, just the basic cover letter, taking a risk with it, you know, maybe saying, you may not think I have these skills, but actually I do. I think that's okay sometimes too, because the standard resume and the standard cover letter just doesn't do it really anymore. So.
I get cover letters and resumes all the time, and the cover letters don't say anything. It says, hi, I'm so-and-so from this place, and I have this degree, and I'm looking for work. That, it doesn't distinguish it from any other, it just goes into the pile. I think Chase is absolutely right. Give me something that makes me want to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me why you
The other
would
thing
fit.
I need
Right.
people
Great
to-
writers too. Use it.
Yeah.
And if a company's got, we put ads out on Shovel Dome all the time. This is for temp. We use a lot of temporary workers, and that's the way you get into the permanent stuff. And there'll be some instructions on what to do as far as how to contact us, who to contact. 4 out of 5 people don't follow the instructions. Follow the instructions. Ours say, send your cover letter and resume to our HR department head. But all of a sudden, I'll start getting a bunch of them because they know the job's in Colorado. I don't have time to look at a lot of them. I need somebody to filter them a little bit for me. And she does a really good job, but that's a first cut going, well, if they didn't follow directions here, are they gonna, what direction else aren't they gonna follow? It's either that they weren't following directions or they weren't reading and absorbing what was said. So also, when you're doing that, I mean, a really good cover letter that makes a notice, but also, if you see an ad or some sort of advertisement for a job, follow what they want you to do. Because a lot of times, and I've known HR people to do that, that's your first test on whether you're going to be an employee. Did you follow this? You know, and unfortunately for a lot of employees, we're taking a lot of white people and shoving them into a funnel because we want them to come out the other end a certain way. But you have to do it because you got to get past that spot. And I think going to coffee with somebody and asking them how they did it, like Chase said, is probably a great way too. You can combine those two, follow their instructions, but what you put in your cover letter and resume is important.
I think that a lot of times now, though, you're getting into the downside of all of the computerization. And, you know, speaking for the city of Fort Collins now, we're going to a system where we have certain words that will be keywords, and they'll scan your resume and your letter to pick up on the keywords. And if you don't have them, then you get shunted aside whether or not you would be perfect for the
But
position.
people will talk to you
So-
about what words to put in there.
Right, well, the job announcement will tell you what words to put in there. So the first thing I would do is I would list, well, not list, because you don't want to do that, but I would incorporate many, if not all, of their key job, you know, where you are looking for a person who is capable of, you know, and start incorporating those into your resume and into your cover letter, and then explain how your background, your unique background, makes you stand out from the others, and able to, you know, you're still able to do that particular task in a better way. So I would do that. And I'm not sure, I think that a lot of times that we've found, maybe I'm going to say the exact opposite of Chase, it's beneficial, Ted, it's beneficial to contact the person and say, do you mind if I send you my information too, because I'm afraid it will get lost in the HR shuffle.
That's true, but I just get
Because-
these random emails.
Oh, I know, yeah,
If
you
you're
don't want to
gonna-
just do a random.
She's right, but I need to have something else coming with it to go, I really need to
Contact
read
the
this.
person ahead of time and say, you know, I'm afraid that
Yeah.
I'm just going to get lost in the things, and I really think this position is perfect for me, and I'm really excited about it. And then, you know, yeah, usually we'll say, sure, go ahead and send it, even if we're thinking, oh, yeah, you know, and then you get it, and of course you read it. You know, it's like, oh, well, this is interesting, and then you're thinking, wow. But having said all that, don't underestimate the value, again, of volunteer work, internships, your network, people that you will meet. If you join those organizations, be active in them. I mean, you don't have to take, you know, positions, become the secretary or the treasurer or whatever else, but network. You know, show up for the meetings, make connections. Most of the good jobs you'll hear about from a friend, someone else who graduated in the program.
A lot of my job now is marketing. If I just think of marketing, I can't stand marketing. I like doing the archaeology and all that, until somebody finally got it through my head a while back that all marketing is working a network and talking to a lot of people and just putting yourself out there and just being yourself. And Chase referred to some values later. You got a set of values, your company does. And just being open and talking to people. As soon as I got that through my head, marketing's no longer a chore. It's much easier to do. And everything you'll do in your life from now on, I don't care what you're doing, you're always marketing yourself. And you're always trying, you're networking with people, and you've got friends, you've got colleagues, you've got your grade school and high school teachers, you've got your college professors. All these people become a network that if you just keep talking, it always helps. It always helps. And a lot of us, especially in archaeology, we're too busy looking at our bones and our stone tools and staying in our one-by-one pit and looking at all these things. And if you don't look up, you miss a lot of stuff. I know a lot of people that are really excellent archaeologists, but they're so narrow, I can't use them unless I have certain temporary projects for them, because they've never looked up and they've never expanded themselves. And there's just so many things to do out there. I started off in journalism and turned into archaeology, and I really like being a photographer. I'm kind of getting back into that, and hopefully I'll be able to turn that into something as kind of a late career, early retirement thing. But I've already recontacted a whole bunch of people I knew that were photographers before, and I've been talking to them. You never know who's going to help you from your past or who's going to help you from your future. I try to tell people, and I got to remind myself this: smile and be friendly at all costs, because you never know who that person is, and it just makes things easier. Unfortunately, in our stressful world, a lot of us go through it too grumpy all the time. I get a broom handle right in the side when I'm leaving in the morning, and my wife goes, "You're a little too crabby today." It's easy to get that way, but being open and just open to everything is good. But having a set of values when there are right and there are wrong, and there's things to do things, and knowing some of the rules. But there's a lot of naysayers out there. Chase would probably agree. You got to take a chance sometimes.
Yeah, and realize that your first job is not going to define the rest of your life. Yeah. And so being okay with that. Career is this like, it's not linear like even my mom's generation was. We're like all free agents, and we have a skill to offer. So that'll take anxiety out of looking for that perfect situation. And I graduated, I was like, man, it's just not perfect. Move on, and if it just had this, just take something that is remotely interesting, and it'll be a great springboard to the second opportunity, and then you'll slowly laser focus, years later on kind of what you want to do. You'll be able to make more decisions in that process.
And you never know what's going to turn. I just turned a temporary employee into a permanent employee. Several years ago, right when I had an office manager when we first opened the office, and she said, "I'm going to be here until my girls graduate from high school, and I'm going to go on." And she did a lot of the administrative stuff and some of the bookkeeping and all that. And sure enough, when her girls graduated, she's gone now. But that was right when the recession hit. We've never hired another person to do that. I use people in our corporate office as much as possible. We still have a lot locally, which means I got to do a lot of it, and I don't really like to do a lot of it, but I do a lot of it. The moral to this is be useful. I had my temporary worker. I was, when the contracts are up, I have to, people that aren't permanent, they get let go because it's only a temporary job. And she was astute enough to see that the project was coming to an end, and there wasn't going to be any necessarily full-time work for it. She said, "Did you know I used to be a secretary in an office? I can do all that stuff for you." She got a raise and got hired about a week after she told me that permanently. And now she does half to 3/4 of my basic admin paperwork, which I don't really like. I told her today I may have to fire her because she laughed because it's the end of the month's coming up and she's going out to the field to work, and I'm stuck with it. But never. But she drew on a former job which she didn't like, which she didn't want to be into, and turned it into a positive for her job, and she does it very well. And she does it about a quarter of her job description now is to help me with all that administrative paperwork. And it's worked out really wonderfully. So you never know what past jobs, too, on your new job is going to come up and be helpful. I guess the moral is be useful to whoever you're working for. Look around and see what needs to be done. And even if I get a number of people, it's like, I didn't get hired to go empty the trash. Well, guess what? We don't have a janitor coming in here. We decided that's not worth the time, so we all have to clean our offices. And you wouldn't believe the amount of people that don't want to do that. In a big place like CSU, you have people that come and clean. Nope,
Yeah, they got, and we didn't have, we went through a dip.
Yeah.
Where we didn't have phone service and a handful of other
Oh,
things.
jeez.
During the recession.
So never be too big about what you're doing. There's, I expect all my people to work for me. They do their job really well, but if the refrigerator needs cleaned out and it's kind of their, there's just it takes a lot of jobs to keep a place going, and everybody throws in and does their own part. It works really well, and I must say when it comes up that this isn't in my job description, it doesn't react well with me. I'm not favorable towards that person. I never ask somebody to do something so far out of their job description, it's just ridiculous. But, make yourself useful. I have another person in my office that knows that I do pretty well with computers, but I don't have the time to get into them, so he has made my computer run just smoothly all the time without, it just helps me greatly, and I like that. We started using iPads to fill out site forms in the field, and all the folks kind of my age, I like it. I think it's pretty cool, but folks, you know, in your cohort here, they just fly with those things. And so there's always something you can do that the bosses don't know, and the people that have been there for a long time don't know.
And then don't overlook the idea of going out and being your own boss.
Yep.
That's what my husband does. He runs his own consulting firm. He's done it for many, many, many years. So, you know, if you're not finding that perfect job, maybe try and create the job yourself and market yourself as a product. Still helps if you have those connections. So get out there, network, join the professional organizations, do all of that. And then it really helps it, for all practical purposes, get a spouse who has a real, I mean, this is, yeah, someone who has health insurance and the steady paycheck. Those are the two things that if you're doing your own consulting business or something, because in consulting the paychecks are very, you know, sometimes you've just got 5 or 6 projects all at once, and other times you don't, and it's, you know, and then health insurance.
So the takeaway there is if you're going to get your PhD, ditch the kids and the spouse. And if you're going to go into consulting, find the spouse with the health insurance. Got it.
Well, thank you for coming. Any other last-minute questions? But have some snacks, guys, and maybe we'll just socialize a little bit, but there's drinks and snacks over there.
Thank you, guys.